Hey everybody, my name is Taylor Glenn and this is my channel Taylor Tries, where I try to teach you everything there is to know about juggling. And today I'm going to teach you an awesome juggling pattern called 4-4-1. It looks like this. Before we start learning the pattern, I want to take a second and thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. Everyone who's a member of my Otter Club, thank you so much. Your support not only makes this possible for everyone else and keeps my tutorials free, it also just means a lot to me that you support my work. If you want to support my tutorials and this channel, you can do that for as little as $2 a month. There's a link in the description, and depending on the amount, you get some additional perks like bonus tutorials and slow motion clips and things like that. Let's learn how to do 4-4-1. 4-4-1 is a 3-ball pattern where 2 throws are thrown up, meaning they do not cross, and then 1 ball is passed quickly from one hand to the other at the bottom of the pattern. 4-4-1 is what we call a sight swap. You can tell because it's a series of numbers. Sight swap is a type of notation, sort of like a language that jugglers use to describe the heights and timings of throws. The good news is you do not need to know anything about sight swap in order to learn 4-4-1, but I do have a tutorial breaking down the basics of sight swap, and it's not as hard as a lot of people think. So there is a link in the description if you want to check that out. But again, you do not need to understand it in order to learn 4-4-1. I also want to clarify, some people get the 4-4-1 pattern confused with the box, which is really similar. They have basically the same throws in them, except 4-4-1 is what we call an asynchronous pattern, meaning the throws are not happening at the same time, whereas the box is a synchronous pattern, so the throws are happening at the same time. So they're very similar, but different. 4-4-1, in my opinion, is much easier than the box. Even though it might be harder to understand, it is easier to do. All right, luckily 4-4-1 isn't a super complicated pattern. However, I would say that 4-4-1 should not be the first pattern that you learn with 3 balls. If you've just learned how to juggle, I highly recommend you check out my 5 easy juggling tricks tutorial. All of those patterns are a lot easier than 4-4-1. Other than that, I would highly recommend that you're comfortable with the 4-2-3 pattern. All right, let's learn it. We're gonna start with 2 balls. That's how we do. We're gonna start with 1 in each hand and we're gonna do the 4 throws. Again, if you don't understand sight swap, that's totally fine. The 4 throws are the ones that go straight up. So when I say 4s, that's what I'm meaning. It's a throw that is going up and down to the same hand. It doesn't cross. So we're gonna start with those 2 up throws, those 2 4s. So we'll go up, up, catch, catch. You're essentially throwing 1 ball up with 1 hand, and before it comes down, you're gonna throw the other hand. You wanna make sure they're in quick succession of each other. So it's up, up, catch, catch. It's not up, up. That's too slow. And 4-4-1 is a symmetrical pattern, meaning you will also be doing this on the other side. So do right, left, catch, catch, left, right, catch, catch. That's it. A sort of addition you can do on top of this is to actually do a clap after the second throw. So up, up, clap, up, clap. It's a really great exercise because that's essentially what the actual pattern is, except that clap is gonna be a ball, but like it's the same, right? 2-ball exercise number 2. We're gonna start with 2 in 1 hand, and we're going to start with that upward throw. Then when this one's up in the air, we're gonna pass this other ball horizontally from this hand to the other hand. The same hand is doing both throws. 1, 2. And I want to take this opportunity to talk about this hand across. For a lot of you, this might be the first time you've done this throw. So ideally when you do this throw, the 1, your hands are going to be turned this direction, sort of like you're shaking somebody's hand. And then ideally, you're going to pull the ball out to sort of load it up like a slingshot, and then you're going to push it to the other hand. From the point that you let go here, to the point that you're catching here should be about shoulder width or hip width apart, and you continue from there. I've emphasized that that's the ideal way to do a 1 because that can be super hard. You can do it just fine with 1 ball, but when you add a 2nd ball or a 3rd ball, your brain freaks out. If you need to, just hand it across. It's okay to not have it be a throw. Learning the correct form for that throw eventually is super key, and you can use this pattern once you learn it to work on that throw. But don't feel like you have to get it perfect right now. So with what I just said in mind, it's totally okay to go up and then just hand that ball over like that. Make sure you do it on the other side. And if you are working on getting that one better with this exercise, when I see people struggling with this one throw, it's almost always very stifled. Like they're not moving their hand at all and they're just sort of trying to push it like that. You gotta get comfortable with this space. Right after you throw, sort of at the same time, you're throwing that one straight up, you're going to be pulling this one throw back to get ready to launch it. So recap, with 2 in one hand, we go up, over, and then do the other side, up, over, up, over, up, over. Timing can be the trickiest part of 4-4-1, so when you're doing this exercise, make sure that immediately after you throw the first throw, you're gonna go into the second throw. Meaning, you don't wanna wait and have them happen at the same time. That would be how we learn the box. For this one, we don't want that. We wanna go up, over, catch. All right, so now we can do the full 4-4-1. We're going to combine that up-up exercise with that up-over exercise. So you start with 2 in one hand, 1 in the other. So we're gonna start with those 2 up throws, those 4s. Then right after that second up, we're gonna do that clap across, or that 1, depending on how comfortable you are with it. Up, up, over. And then you catch them. And it's great. And then you've got 2 on the other side, and you can work on the other hand. 4-4-1. Try to make those 2 4s, those 2 up throws, right after each other. They should go up, up. Do not pause after the first one, because that's where your brain's gonna want to do it, and that's not gonna work. So up, up, over. Up, up, over. Not up, up, over. Everyone does that, don't do that. So once you have worked on that, you've essentially done every throw in the pattern. We just have to like combine them and put them all together. So we're gonna start the same way we just did. We go up, up, over. But now when that last ball is in the air and it's coming down, instead of just collecting it, now we're going to throw the next 4, the next up throw. So it's gonna go up, up, over, up. 4-4-1, 4. If that feels really hard, that's okay. I have 2 pieces of advice for you. After you catch the 1, immediately bring your hand down. That's how you're gonna wind up to get that next 4. If you're somebody who just like can't even throw it, you can't get the next throw out, my advice to you, don't worry about catching the 4s, or at least the second 4. Focus on the throw. So you might go 4-4-1, 4. Drop that ball. Even if it's super late, and I tell my students this all the time, if you're doing 4-4-1 and that one's coming down and you intentionally drop it and you still haven't thrown the next 4, you can feel really silly, but throw the 4, even if that one's already touched the ground. Because what we're trying to do is tell our brain to do something and have our body actually do it. So take the pressure off of trying to do it at the right time and just do it. Now, if you are paying attention to the colors or even just where each ball is going, the one that you're handing across is immediately getting thrown back up into the pattern. Quick note, when you add this up throw, you can throw it either on the outside of that last ball or the inside of that last ball. And that's the distinction between the 2 4-4-1s, the sort of columns version versus the fountain throw version. So if you're doing the fountain throw 4-4-1, then you're going to throw that next 4 on the inside of the ball coming down, like that. So up, up, over, up. If you're doing the columns throw version of 4-4-1, that next throw will actually be on the outside of that ball coming down, like that. For most people, just getting that throw out is hard enough. So wherever you naturally end up throwing that next 4, that next up throw, just go with it. But if at any point you decide that you really want to learn the difference between the fountain throw version and the columns version, that's the key. It's the first 4 on each side. If it's inside, you're doing fountain throws. If it's outside, it's column throws. Then from there, we just have to add 2 more throws. In this pattern, the ups, the 4 throw is always in a pair, right? It's always up, up, 4, 4. So with that in mind, when we went up, up, over, up, we know that there should be another up right after it. 4, 4, 1, 4, 4. For some people, stopping after that second 4 might feel really unnatural. If it's easier for you to just skip right to doing 4-4-1, 4-4-1, then just do that. Up, up, over, up, up, over. 4-4-1, 4-4-1. Depending on who you are, you might want to spend more time on just the 4-4 in that second rotation, or you might feel more comfortable doing the full 4-4-1. The goal is to eventually connect those two sides and go up, up, over, up, up, over. So you'll end exactly where you started. Four, 4-1, 4-4-1. Once you get to this point where you're adding those last two throws, you have to make sure that those fours, those up throws, are happening right after each other. That should be one of your priorities when working on this exercise. If you're hesitating even a little bit on that second 4 throw, that second up throw, it's gonna feel really bad. Make sure the timing is right after each other. 4-4, up, up. So yeah, once you work on those two sides, 4-4-1, 4-4-1, from there you just repeat. As that last ball is coming down, you start again with the up throw, the 4 throw. 4-4-1, 4-4-1, 4-4-1, 4-4-1, up, up, over, up, up, over. So for this point, you can do 4-4-1 and it looks awesome and you feel good with it. Good on ya, high five. You can probably stop watching if you want. But if you're like most normal human beings and something just doesn't quite feel right, that's why we have this section, troubleshooting. The most common problem that I've already mentioned in the tutorial is that the timing feels wrong. Maybe you feel really rushed, like you can't get the next throw out, or you feel like you're fumbling them. Those are signs that there is a timing issue going on. And I would say almost always the culprits of that are the 4s, those 2 up throws. Again, first thing, you want to check that the heights are correct. These should be the same height. If they're different heights, it will make the timing different. That's how gravity works. Physics. But most likely the reason why you're having timing issues is that you're hesitating after the first 4. And there's just the slightest hesitation before you throw the second 4. You might not even notice it. It might feel like you're throwing it really soon. If you're having timing issues, it's very likely you're still not throwing it soon enough. So if you listen to the pattern and you feel the rhythm of it, ideally it should be pretty consistent. It should go 4-4-1, 4-4-1. What you might be doing instead is 4-4-1, 4-4-1. So try to get those 4s a little closer in time. Be careful when you work on that you don't compensate by trying to make the second throw a lot higher. Rule number 1 with 4-4-1 is that the 4s have to be the same height. So if you're gonna make that second one higher, gotta make the first one higher. This next one is a common complaint that I hear from people trying to learn this pattern. After they've gone 4-4-1 and they need to throw that next 4, the throw often either just like plops out of their hand, or most commonly they end up throwing it out, away from them. That just comes from feeling like you don't have enough time, and maybe you actually don't. The first thing to check is just the height of that last 4. If it's too low, you're not gonna have enough time to get wound up and throw the next 4 because it's coming down too fast. The other aspect of that is a little bit harder for beginners to grasp. When you throw that one throw, you're gonna wanna make sure you're coming down to wind up for the 4 that you're about to throw. It's very common as that last ball is coming down and you haven't loaded up, so you just think, I gotta push it, and then you're catching up here and you just keep pushing yourself higher and higher. So the key to that is as soon as you hand that ball across or you throw that ball across, you wanna bring it down to get momentum to throw it. Another problem I see, if you're really uncomfortable with that 1 or that hand across, a lot of people, they'll sort of try to do a little tiny throw in between the 2 4s. Unfortunately, with 4-4-1, because timing is so important, as we've mentioned, that doesn't work. We really gotta make sure that that 1 is a fast hand across. So that means getting comfortable with what I was talking about of loading up the throw and then launching it, or just handing it across. It is better to just hand the ball across than it is to try to do that like weird horizontal toss. If that's happening because you are trying to learn the 1 throw, basically what you need to focus on is turning your hands more. Usually after you've thrown the 4, your hands just stays straight up and you try to do a 1, but it ends up going up because your hand has not turned. So you gotta make sure that you turn your hand over after you do that first throw so that you can actually make a horizontal pass and really get comfortable with the momentum. If it's going up and then coming down, even just a little bit, like a parabola, then it's not fast enough. Little bonus tip, it's not really a problem, it's just something that might help. Look at the 4s, the 4 throws. look at them. So our brains kind of go into autopilot when we learn, and people do that sort of glossed over look, and that can mess you up. So my tip is just to check in and see where you're looking. If you're looking through the pattern, maybe try snapping back into focus and look at the ball that's at its peak, meaning that first one. And the second one, you shouldn't really have to look at the hand across because it's so fast. I also sometimes see people just look at one of the sides. If you find, for example, that you're dropping one hand a lot, maybe check and see if you're actually looking at that ball or you're looking through the pattern. And that's 4 for 1. You did it. Or maybe you didn't and you just gotta watch the tutorial again. It takes time. This is kind of a weird one. It can take a while to learn. Either way, I hope this tutorial helped you out, at least getting you started in the right direction. Feel free to leave a comment letting me know if you learned it or you didn't, or letting me know any other patterns that you want me to cover in my next tutorial. And if it did help you and you want to show some support, please like the video, subscribe if you can and you want to see more. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can become a member of my Otter Club on Patreon for just $2 or more if you're super generous and nice. Either way, I appreciate you watching. I hope it helped, and I'll see you next time. Lens is dirty. Is that better? I haven't been feeling well lately, so it's been a while since I filmed a tutorial, as you've probably noticed. Or maybe not, I don't know. But it's gonna be hard to get back into it. And then you can do the trick, and you can drop. In your head, if you're saying up, it should be followed by up, except for the second up. It's just been a while, give me a second. 4 for 1 penguin. Bonus.